Well, joining me now is Louise Blais, former Canadian diplomat and Deputy Permanent Representative of Canada to the United Nations. Thank you for being here. I want to start with the tone, I think, of Donald Trump's remarks. It was a speech that lasted for a little over an hour, was very critical of both the United Nations and a number of countries. Clearly, what do you make and what are your biggest takeaways from that speech?
Well, Matt, hello. Great to be with you. Look, I mean, it's a speech. Each country is allowed 20 minutes. He went well over that. It's totally not unexpected. The tone actually was fairly tame, I have to say. I mean, in the past, I've sat in that room and I've seen walkouts when he has spoken. I think people have gotten used to him now and know what to expect. And even the most outrageous comments, kind of people shrug off. And there were a few of those obviously in his address. But the tone, although, as you say, he did criticize the UN, he did have a few swipes at other major issues, but he did seem, at the end, he had a tone that was extremely positive, supporting all countries' right for their existence and their prosperity. So he was a sort of a little bit half critical and half hopeful is how I would describe the tone.
And I'm curious too about your thoughts on now the future of what we're looking at for the United Nations, right? The U.S. has long played a leading position. Donald Trump has stopped funding the UN from the U.S. perspective, at least at this point. But when the leader of the United States, at least at this point, goes into that room, and again, I understand and take your point that he wasn't too critical, at least at this juncture, but has been in the past. What's the future for the UN, do you believe, as you watch some of this fracture start to occur? Is there a place for it moving forward, and how does that happen with the United States' current positions?
Well, clearly, I mean, there has to be a coming together. I know that he's meeting with the UN Secretary General. I think at least what we did not hear today is a pullout of the United States or something drastic any further than what they've already announced. So I think that's positive. It was quite interesting that he talked about the fact that when he was a developer, that he did not win the contract to refurbish the UN years ago. He spent at least 5 minutes on that. And so you kind of have to think that his dislike of the UN goes back to that time. But I think overall today we're hearing, I think, what we expected to hear vis-a-vis the UN. And I think that he says that it has potential. So I think that's what we need to hold on to. And clearly the United States, and the time that I was at the UN, I've demanded the UN reform, reorganize. It is a heavily bureaucratic organization that does a lot of great good, but at the same time is expensive. And so I expect that the Americans will continue to put pressure on the UN to cut costs, to streamline operations, because above and beyond what he criticized the UN for in terms of not being able to stop wars, what it does do in the area of aid, humanitarian aid, is absolutely fundamental, especially now that U.S. Aid has been pulled out.
Right. Yeah. Again, you make that point too about the U.S. I'm just curious too, before I let you go, about Canada's position in all of this is too. One of the countries to recognize a Palestinian state, the U.S. and Donald Trump clearly expressing at least the U.S. how against the U.S. that is. What role does Canada play now too in here? Been peacemaker for a very long time, including their involvement with the UN on the ground and otherwise. But what do you make of that?
Well, I don't think we have the same influence as we used to have. That's clear. But I think people are taking notice because we had for a long time aligned our position on Israel and Palestine to that of the United States and Israel. And so this is a big shift. It's one that I think other countries are taking note. They often did not understand what Canada's position had been in the past. And so I think this bodes well in terms of Canada's relations around the world. But I think we have to also be mindful of managing our relationship with our largest trading partner and our neighbor, the superpower that is the United States, as we do just that.
Louise Blais, former Canadian diplomat and Deputy Permanent Representative of Canada to the United Nations. Thank you for this. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.